أهلا ومرحبا بكم في اليوم الثاني لفعاليات منتدى إيديوتك من إطار مسؤوليتنا المجتمعية والبيئية وفي مبادرة من إيديوتك للاستدامة البيئية. فقد استبدل إيديوتك المطبوعات الورقية بالQR codes. From our social and environmental responsibility and in EduTech's initiative for environmental sustainability, EduTech has replaced printed materials by QR codes. وهو ما سوف يتم مناقشته في الجلسة الرابعة بعنوان الاستدامة والممارسات الخضراء بالتعليم الفني والتدريب المهني. المتحدث الرئيسي لهذه الجلسة دكتور غادة النشار، المدير التنفيذي لصندوق التعليم حياة القومي الخيري. تفضل دكتور غادة. فلنرحب معا بدكتور غادة. سيشن مودريتور دكتور غادة النشار. المتحدثون ميس كورا جوتمان، رئيس مشروع دعم التشغيل وتعزيز العمالة في مشروع الدعم الفني لمبادرة التعليم الفني الشامل مع مصر، الوكالة الألمانية للتعاون الدولي. You're mostly welcomed, Miss Cora Gottman. Miss Mervy Johnson، الرئيس التنفيذي لشركة Omnia Education Partnership OEP. She will be joining us online. Welcome, Miss Mervy. دكتور رشا عبد الحكيم، مستشار اقتصادي أول مكتب النمو الاقتصادي. أهلا دكتور رشا. مستر أوفي فيكنبرغ، خبير دولي في مجال التعليم الفني والتدريب المهني، مشروع الترويج للتعليم الفني والتدريب المهني وتعزيز الطاقة المستدامة في التعليم الفني والتدريب المهني. You almost welcomed, Mr. Uwe. دكتور تامر نبيل، عميد الكلية المصرية الصينية للتكنولوجيا التطبيقية. أهلا دكتور تامر. مستر ريكاردو أبريدا، ممثل مؤسسة التدريب الأوروبي. Ricardo Apreda, PhD, is co-founder and head of R&D of IRI Quadro SRL, a spin-off company of the University of Pisa specialized in the development of software for the automatic analysis of technical texts, with particular focus on patents. Parallel to the research activity, he coordinated about 100 business projects on mapping and valorization of intellectual property, competitive intelligence, technology foresight, and skill foresight, having as clients large companies, SMEs, and national and international institutions, and he's representing the European Training Foundation. مستر دكتور ريكاردو أبريدا هو المؤسس المشارك ورئيس قسم البحث والتطوير لشركة إيرا كوادرو SRL، وهي شركة منبثقة عن جامعة بيزا متخصصة في تطوير البرمجيات للتحليل التلقائي للنصوص التقنية مع التركيز بشكل خاص على براءات الاختراع بالتوازي مع النشاط البحثي. نسق حوالي 100 مشروع تجاري حول رسم خرائط الملكية الفكرية وتثمينها والذكاء التنافسي والاستبصار التكنولوجي واستبصار المهارات، حيث عمل لعملاء من الشركات الكبيرة والصغيرة والمتوسطة والمؤسسات الوطنية والدولية. He will be joining us online. Hello, Dr. Rika. دكتور غادة النشار سوف تدير الجلسة.
Good morning. Good morning ladies and gentlemen. صباح الخير على الجميع. بشكر إديوتك لهذه الفرصة، لإتاحة هذه الفرصة لهذا المنتدى المهم جدا من أهم المحافل في التعليم الفني والتدريب المهني. بشكر دكتور علي شمس الدين والقائمين على هذا المنتدى. أهلا بحضراتكم في الجلسة الرابعة للمنتدى، وهي بعنوان الاستدامة والممارسات الخضراء والرقمنة في التعليم الفني والتدريب المهني. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to session 4, Sustainability, Green Practices and Digitalization in TVET. We will start with our Zoom meeting with Ms. Merve Jansen. She is the CEO of Omnia Education Partnership Finland with تأهيل for VET Skills and Excellence. Good morning, Ms. Merve. Can you hear us?
Good morning. Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And we wanted to ask you how greening and digitalization are core themes of vocational excellence and impact pretty much everything in TVET, from infrastructure to human resources, systems and process, as well as stakeholders relations.
I have a short presentation that I would like to share with you. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So basically, in Finland, we are very keen on the green agenda, but we are also pretty much driving the digitalization as well. And you might know that Finland is one of the global leaders of digitalization, and we're ranked as #1 in sustainable development quite recently, and actually a comparison of 193 countries. So this cannot go unnoticed from the TVET side. And we've been working for 3 years with the European Training Foundation on this, let's say, building of excellence and sharing what are the competences for the future, because that's what we need to teach today in TVET. And we very much concluded that greening and digitalization are core parts of the excellence. And if we look at competence from a Finnish point of view, what TVET should produce and where we add value, it's actually a combination of knowledge, skills, and mindset. And these applied successfully equal the competence. So if we're looking at learners today, our workforce for the future, these are very core themes that we need to embed in all of TVET. But how does that actually work? In our work with the excellence concept and developing excellence, we've actually developed this model. And we're looking at excellence traditionally on the horizontals, but now we can no longer stay with the horizontals. We need to add in the verticals, which actually impact everything. And when I mean everything, it's anything from infrastructure, human resources, pedagogical landscape, systems and processes, and of course, a very important one is the stakeholder collaboration. Now, typically, you have been able to be excellent on one of the horizontals so that it doesn't have such a great impact or doesn't demand so much from the other layers. But when we're talking about greening, digitalization, which are packaged together into innovation, we really have to change the whole scope of what is happening in TVET. And I wanted to point out some of the national level drivers in any system, and this also goes for global drivers. So the national TVET agenda can be very much about greening and digitalization. That's been happening in Finland for digitalization actually for the past 15 years, and that's why the COVID basically the pandemic and the disruption were not so harsh on Finnish TVET because we were actually prepared with the digitalization. But let's say during the past 5 years, the national agenda has also included greening, so that now we have greening actually in all of our vocational modules as learning outcomes, and we also have a module particularly on greening, which is open to all of the TVET students. There could be legislative requirements driving these changes, different stakeholder initiatives, economic development. These could be funding priorities. But first and foremost, from the TVET point of view, we're looking at future jobs. So if we want to be relevant and we want our graduates to be relevant, we need to be ready to prepare them for the future jobs. So just a quick look on how the impact actually should show on the different horizontal levels of excellence. So if we look at infrastructure, there, of course, energy efficiency, water consumption, lifespan of the buildings, multi-group and multi-purpose use of the facilities, so that we don't have facilities which are only partially in use. So campuses open to all, to different stakeholders for different purposes. And of course, if we look at the digitalization, then connectivity and the equipment available, smart surfaces, so that we're really at the core of what's happening. When we're looking from a human resources point of view, it's about green values and mindset, about capacity building on digitalization and greening. Very much about the working modes and the culture of the organization. And that also has a spillover effect into the stakeholder collaboration. But if we look at the pedagogical landscape, it's about the learning environments. So basically, how and where do our learners learn? Because that should basically reflect how they will be working in the future. The training methods and the training culture that we have, and of course, the competence goals. So are we measuring what we hope to actually produce as knowledge, skills, and competence? That should show in the curriculum. In our systems and processes, what data do we generate? What do we collect? And how do we utilize this data? What type of quality assurance do we have? What are the KPIs measuring our performance? And of course, greening, for instance, can also show in our procurement. The stakeholder collaboration, last but definitely not least, how do we engage in sectoral development? Are there joint innovation projects where we are basically one of the driving forces? Do we connect on these themes on a global level? What type of upskilling programs can we offer small and medium-sized companies, large companies, whole sectors, so that TVET is actually proactively driving the change, not just trying to, let's say, stay on the bandwagon? And then the ongoing curriculum development. So these are some of the impacts that the greening and digitalization will have and should have in TVET. So this was a very quick overview of how we see greening and digitalization in Finland and some of the work that we've been doing on a global level. It was a pleasure sharing this, and I hope this was fruitful and interesting for the panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Murphy, for this very interesting presentation and delivering the Finnish experience to Cairo. Thank you very much. Now we move on to Ms. Cora Gutman, Head of Employment Promotion Project at GIZ. How are you? It's a pleasure to have you. We wanted to ask you, what is the role of technical education in transitioning to a green economy?
Thank you very much for having me on the panel, and thank you for the question. And I would also really like to thank my predecessor, Ms. Marvi, for her very nice presentation, because it really covers in detail many of the factors which are really important. So what is the role of technical education in transitioning to a green economy? So first of all, technical education is in principle a success factor because it promotes economic development. Skills and competences are needed in the labor market, and this is what technical education provides. So one point is very important: the closer the private sector is involved in technical education, the better the education and the qualification of students will be, and the better the workforce is and will be prepared for the future of the work. This applies to all forms of technical education, be it, let's say, normal technical secondary schools or the dual system or other forms of work-based learning. So this is, once again, private sector involvement is key because this is where students will go later as workforce. So having said that, the same in fact applies to the green economy. The green economy is an economy, but of course with a, let's say, different color. It's low carbon, resource efficient and socially inclusive. And with this, and we know it's absolutely important because we all face now the effects of climate change. It's needed to really prevent further loss of biodiversity and ecosystems. So this is an ideal situation, which we have not reached there. That's why we always talk about transitioning to a green economy. And here, the changes in an economic context to which we all have to adapt. We have to see these are technologies, these are laws or bylaws, regulations, skills and competences will change, and also consumer behavior, because it's most probably that consumers in the future will want to have more ecological products or products which are more socially inclusive or less energy efficient. More energy efficient, of course. So in this case, technical education plays a very important role because it can act as a facilitator to transitioning to the green economy. And how can it do this? First of all, to ensure that young people, that students are adequately qualified for this new changing world of work. And for example, important is to define occupational profiles in collaboration with the private sector, identify skills and competences needed in specific technical areas or specific green sectors, but also as cross-cutting competences for all jobs, in fact. Also, what Marvi already said, schools can become green learning environments, and that means that they can become energy efficient. We can talk about solar powered schools or training in how water can be saved, for example, but also how waste can be separated. And that means that it's not only about the facilities, but also about the people who manage the schools, management, teachers and students, of course. What I see is very interesting when we talk about the role in transitioning to a green economy technical education can play is that we know from this movement of Fridays of Future that it's something which is really in the interest of youth. And it's no wonder, because youth will be affected much more than we are. If I talk about my generation, well, I see things happening, but our children, our grandchildren, they will really face the change. So they have an interest and they show an interest. And I think this is something which is a chance and an opportunity for technical education and also for policymakers. Make young people, youth now interested in technical education and in the green or green jobs or greener jobs. For example, pre-orientation programs at a very early stage where students and their parents are right from the beginning geared towards this kind of change. They can also become multipliers even in their homes with learning certain competences. Important is also to integrate cross-cuttingly environmental competences and skills in all curricula and train teaching staff and management accordingly so that they also collaboratively steer this into the new direction. Further important is to promote green occupation or greener occupations. And of course, here again, the private sector plays an important role because they set the benchmark here. And together with the public sector, this can really make a change. In principle, I think to act responsibly, and I would rather like to use responsibly in terms of, and not always say green, because we see also lots of greenwashing, but this is really important for every profession and every sector. And this competence to act accordingly or to act sustainably or responsible is in fact, in everyone's professional life, an integral part in the future. And having said that, I would say that technical education really can pave the way and support this movement.
Thank you very much. Thank
you.
you, Ms. Cora Goodman, from Head of Employment Promotion Project at GIZ. And now we move to Dr. Rasha Abdel Hakim, Senior Economic Counselor, Office of Economic Growth, USAID. Welcome, Dr. Rasha.
Thank you. Welcome.
Could you tell us how important skills development is to the green transformation?
First, I would like to thank you for inviting me to the panel and to this very important conference. Now, this question that you raised actually has been subject to research by many international organizations like OECD, the ILO, and the Economic Commission. But let's first define what green jobs are. So according to the UN definition, green jobs and sectors are those in which waste creation and pollution are minimized.
Okay.
Now, according to this research work, if we want to have a successful transition to a low carbon emission economy, there have to be two prerequisites. The first is that we have to ensure that workers are able to adapt and transfer from sectors of declining employment to sectors that are booming. And the second, we have to invest in human capital so that we can maximize the human capital that is required for the green transition.
Yes.
Now, why is this important? Because according to some ILO estimates, if no action is actually taken to develop the skills required for the green transition, we could risk having around 1.5 billion jobs that could be eliminated or lost. So it's really serious to move towards this. Now, of course, not all the sectors will be equally affected by the green transition. Those sectors that will be most affected are those that are high carbon emitting sectors, like the mining sector, automobiles, and the fuel-based energy generation sectors. Now, the relationship between the green economy and the skills requirement is a two-way relationship. So greening the economy will affect skills requirements in actually three important ways. First, the changes in the structure of the economy and the way jobs are being performed will increase the demand for some occupations and will decrease the demand for others. So there will be a need to reskill and upskill the workforce. The second way is that with the green transformation, there will be new activities that will come up and will be established, and these will create new occupations that will need new skills. So we need to also train the workforce to have those skills. And the third way is that many of the existing activities actually will experience what we call greening changes to their existing tasks. And this will also require some upskilling of the workforce. So as I said, the green transformation and skills requirement is a two-way relationship. I just talked about the one way, but the other way is that if we are proactive and we develop, actually, we invest and we developed the skills for the green transformation, it's in itself can be an engine of change because it can attract investments in the green activities and the green industries. So it's a two-way relationship. Time is up. I just wanted to say one more thing, very important, because usually there's this misconception that with the green transformation, there will be a loss of jobs.
Yes.
Actually, there has been many research done in this, and according to one of the research that was done on the new techniques for the production and use of energy, it was estimated that there will be 6 million jobs lost worldwide, but there will be also 24 million jobs gained. So the net gain in job creation will be 80 million. Another estimate is that if we embrace a circular economy based on the reuse and the recycling, there will be also a net gain of 6 million jobs worldwide. So it's not necessarily true that the green transformation will lead to job loss.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Dr. Rasha. That's very reassuring. Thank you very much. Now we move to Mr. Uwe Wickenberg, international TVET expert. And if you could kindly tell us, how would you address the topic quality within the framework of career opportunities?
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation and having me here. I've prepared a few slides. Are we able to show these slides?
The mic, can you?
The mic
mic
is-
closer? Yes. Turn it on and make it closer so that we can all
Okay.
hear you.
I will be closer to the microphone. Yes. Thank you very much for the invitation and having me here. We prepared a few slides. Is it possible
Okay.
to see the slides now to give you an overview of the framework we are working in this project? And it's a bit more easy to listen if you have a few
Of
keywords
course,
on the
yes.
slide to comprehend. Thank you very much. Well, this is not the slide, not it. Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So I'm representing this project. The abbreviation is TRE. This is Technical Education in Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency. This is a huge project funded by the KfW and European Union, implemented by BOPA Infra on behalf of the Ministry of Education and Technical Education, which is the owner of this project, you can say. We have basically two main components. Component one is the establishment of 3 centers of competence in this sector in renewable energy and energy efficiency. And number 2 is the upgrading and rehabilitation of 20 technical secondary schools. Also looking towards, let's say, energy efficiency. We will have solar panels on the roof and many other new equipment and many other items. In what I'm telling now is more concentrated on component number 1. You can imagine when we have to rehabilitate and when we have to build centers, we have 2 main areas in our project. One is more the infrastructure construction, and the other is the TVET area. And I would like to concentrate on component 1, the establishment of centers of competence. When we think about these centers of competence, we think mainly about these 7 principles, or you can say issues. Number 1, we have heard this already this morning, relevance. For us, relevance is very, very important, especially in these times with the growing speed of the development of economy, of technology, and also education. And we must always have an answer to the question, are we training the competences which are needed in the world of work in the private sector? This is very important. Otherwise, we cannot continue with a strict or strong cooperation with the private sector, who is the final beneficiary of what we are doing besides the students. We also have to take into consideration we call this future skills. Just imagine, we have not started building the centers of competence, and we are speaking about curricula already, about competences, what the students should be able to, should be trained in. And our first graduates probably will come out of this new entity in probably 5 years, 5 or 6 years.
Mm.
What will be needed then in this 6 years? Of course, we don't know. We don't have a clear answer on this as everybody, because the development is very rapid. So we must just take into our consideration and prepare the basis, the foundation for a modern and future-oriented technical education, which we can in this project. Number 2 is quality. We want to have, and we must have, of course, the national accreditation of the entities which are responsible for quality in technical education. We also want to have international accreditation coming from Europe, probably, or coming from the US as well, like ISO for the management system, like some other standards, quality standards in TVET. And we always have to keep in mind that after the funding period, the center must continue. So we have a strong impact regarding sustainability. We want to have a strong impact regarding sustainability. How can we ensure that the center continues after the funding period? And quality is one main issue here. And of course, the relevance in the eyes of the private sector. The third point I'd like to stress is the linkage to the real world of work. In TVET, we always speak about knowledge, skills, and attitude. And knowledge you can train or teach in the school, skills you can teach and train in the workshop, but what is with behavior? And this is our experience, also behavior, very important. You learn this in a better way when you are in a real company, when you work with others together, you learn how to deal with your managers, you learn how to deal with customers, you learn how to deal with your colleagues, and all these important issues in the technical training as well, the attitude. So this means we are not a standalone institution, so this must be embedded in the private sector with a strong cooperation with the private sector, who finally also has a say in what we are doing or what the center is going to implement. Number 4 is the connectivity to higher education. When I came to Egypt many years ago, I learned that TVET at that time did not have a good reputation. In the eyes of many, it was the second best solution. The parents, whenever possible, they would like to have their children in higher education, even when they are jobless after graduation. Yeah. So this is one issue, but this is how it is. And we have to work on this, which is a long-term input to raise the reputation of TVET. And one part is that we open the pathway from TVET to higher education as well. That's why you will see this in the next slide. That's why we always have a link to the labor market after each stage, and also a link to, for instance, universities of technology after our graduating from the Center of Competence after the 2 years. This is one special item to be different from other institutions. We always speak about the 3+2 model. 3+2 means that we have 3 years initial technical training with available competency-based curricula and many specializations, many programs. Then we have a +2 year, 2 years on top for the best ones, for the best graduates of the 3 years. And these 2 years are specialized in renewable energy and energy efficiency in a very deeper sense. And after this examination, after graduation from these 2 years, students or graduates can go to the labor market. We are always in a strong cooperation with the companies of the private sector, or they can join the universities of technology. So this means we think this makes our approach more attractive to many students. Another point is teacher education. For us, this is connected. You cannot separate teacher education from the training, from technical training. That's why we will have a section of the TVET in the centers of competence. TVET is the academy which is responsible for training of technical teachers. This will be part of the center of competence, and the continuous education and continuous further education of our teachers, instructors, and trainers will be also a part of our work, a part of the center of competence. Well, no, one back. So point 6 is digitalization. We had some ideas about digitalization in the first contribution here, so I will not. Can we go back to the slides, please? Thank you very much. So we will not, I will not mention this in a deeper sense. I just followed the discussion in Germany the last month regarding artificial intelligence, which is, there's a new magic tool now available, which is called ChatGPT, which is a dialogue tool. You can ask a question and you get a response from the system, from the artificial intelligence, which is not copied and pasted from Google. So, and many teachers and educators are afraid now. When I do assessment, when I do examination, is this coming from the computer or this is our student? So I have to assess the competence of the student. So what do I do? Of course, this is very new. And some teachers go back. No, we go back to paper and pencil examination. Where I'm sure that the source is our student. But I think we have to integrate this artificial intelligence. We cannot avoid, and this must be an integral part of education, especially of technical education. One last word about sustainability, just to finish this list, means we must ensure that the lifespan of the Center of Competence is long after the end of the funding period. So this only is possible, I think, with a very strict cooperation with the private sector. And the private sector is the main stakeholder of the future Center of Competence. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Uwe Wilkenberg. And now we move to Dr. Ahmed El-Sabbah, Advisor to the Minister of Technical and Technological Education. حضرتك في presentation حضرتك هتتفضل تنقل لنا تجربة الوزارة في هذا الموقف.
Thank you for the kind invitation and being here. Actually, under the circumstances of new regulations around the whole world in recycling, new energy, fossil oil deficiency, the whole world is moving to sustainable and green energy. So please, the PowerPoint presentation. Should start it now. So I will focus on the energy and especially for the
لو تحب
green
حضرتك
hydrogen.
ممكن نعمل البرزنتيشن
Okay,
باللغة العربية بما إن في
Okay,
عدد
no
كبير من
problem, yeah.
الحضور يعني.
اوكي. يعني طبعا هركز بس على تجربه واحده بتاعت الجرين هيدروجين. طبعا احنا يعني كما هو معروف، مش عارف بس البرزنتيشن لما تشتغل، لكن يمكن دلوقتي مور ايكونوميكلي تو لان احنا نركز اكتر على البلو هيدروجين اللي هو لسه في كربون ايميشنز، لسه في مشاكل، بس هو لسه اوفر مقارنه بالجرين هيدروجين. ففي خطه يعني وفقا للحكومه المصريه بالاتفاقات مع اليوروبيان كوميونتي، مع المانيا بالذات، على 2 فيزز ان احنا ندخل في لحد 2035 بنستخدم البلو هيدروجين، بنحاول نركز فيه لحد بعد كده ننتقل اكتر الى الجرين هيدروجين. وبالذات ان مصر تعتبر يعني هب رئيسي في خطوط الامداد سواء في الناتشرال جاز اللي موجود عندنا عن طريق توصيلها لاوروبا من سواء من عندنا احنا شخصيا، سواء خطوط تمتد الى جهات اخرى في افريقيا او في اسيا. Next please. Next. اوكي عدينا. Next please. يمكن هنا بركز على تو فيزز اللي مصر يعني مركزه عليه لحد 2035 في البلو هيدروجين باستخدام الناتشرال جاز والرينيوبل انرجي بعد كده عن طريق. اوكي ثانك يو. والجرين هيدروجين عن طريق الرينيوبل انرجي اما نقدر مور الكتروليسيس اند نقدر يبقى ايكونوميكلي بالنسبه لنا ان احنا نوصل للجرين هيدروجين واللي هو زيرو كربون ايميشن. طيب مصر زي ما قلت يمكن عملت دلوقتي كوميتمنتس مع الاتحاد الاوروبي، مع المانيا، في اكتر من شركه، يمكن اكتر من 6 شركات اوريدي من غير ما نعمل تسميه ليهم موجودين في مصر بيعملوا يعني الباور بلانتس بتاعتهم او شغالين، وبالذات في المنطقه الشماليه في بورسعيد وفي غيرها. وسوري يمكن المستهدف اللي هو 7.6 مليون طن للامونيا جرين امونيا و2.7 مليون طن للهيدروجين annually to be produced. ده كده مثال للاتفاقيات مع الجانب الالماني والجوانب الاوروبيه. طيب الكلام ده كله بيخلي الحكومه، طب هل عندنا كوادر بشريه ونقدر نشتغل بيها في مصر؟ الجاب اساسا معروف انها في التكنيكال والفوكيشنال جاب دي واضحه جدا. عشان كده الاهتمام بقى واضح جدا ان احنا عندنا لازم نعمل يعني نساهم في التعليم التكنولوجي ونستثمر فيه. وزاره التربيه والتعليم من جهتها شغاله، التعليم العالي برضه شغال، خاصه ان المشاكل اوريدي معروفه وتم سردها اكتر من مره، من مشاكل اجتماعيه، من مشاكل عدم توافر يعني قبول مجتمعي لبعض انواع الاشغال الفنيه، عدم وجود كوادر قادره على اعطاء التعليم الفني الحق بتاعه زي ما هنشوف بعد كده من المشاكل اللي احنا بتقابلنا. فالوزاره يمكن زي ما انتم عارفين لحد السنه دي مثلا طلعت 10 جامعات تكنولوجيه بنظام ال2+2 زي ما مستر اوفا فيكنبرج اوريدي ذكر، يعني يعني خلينا 2+2 وفقا للسيستم بتاعنا اللي هو 2 دبلوم، ويفضل بعد كده ان هو فعلا يقدر يكمل يطلع في شغل، اللي بيقدر يجيب مثلا GPA معين او بيكتسب خبرات معينه بيقدر يكمل التو الثانيه. النماذج عندنا قلنا اكتر من 10 جامعات: شرق بورسعيد، برج العرب، اسيوط الجديده، طيبه في الاقصر، مصر الدوليه بفروعها الثلاثه بناء على الخبرات السابقه في الاميريه وفي الفيوم وفي اسيوط، سمنود، وهكذا. كل دي جامعات طلعت جديد. طبعا هي في دور لسه القاهره التكنولوجيه 6 اكتوبر، كل دول في دور النشأة. الجامعات دي يعني باعتبار ان احنا بنتكلم على السستينابيلتي، احنا مش بس بنتكلم عنها وعلى الانرجي، ولكن اساسا انا يهمني مثلا الرقم مثلا ادي 7 ان احنا بنستخدم في انرجي وكربون فري ايميشن، لكن برضه يهمني ان الانستتيوشنز اللي احنا بنبنيها والدوله بتستثمر فيها اموال، واحنا عارفين مثلا بنتكلم مثلا يعني اولموست 500 مليون مثلا بير جامعه عشان تتبني بامكانياتها بحاجتها، 10000 جنيه قصدي 40000 جنيه مثلا بتصرف على الطالب في التعليم الفني في الحقيقي تقديرا، ما دخلتش اختلاف سعر الدولار والكلام ده في اي حاجه. فكل دي استثمارات لازم اضمن انها تسستين بعد كده. يمكن عشان كده اهتمينا ان كل الجامعات اللي اتبنت دي دايما فيها كليه واضحه كده، كليه العلوم الطاقه، كليه الطاقه والصناعه. دايما الطاقه اساسا يعني واضحه جدا ان احنا عارفين ان ده جزء كبير جدا من المستقبل للاشغال الجديده. يمكن في تجربه دلوقتي مميزه ان احنا دلوقتي مع سوري. يعني تجربه لسه جديده، ان احنا لازم البارتنرشيب او النموذج البي بي بي، البابليك والبابليك سيكتور مع البرايفت سيكتور، بارتنرشيب 3 بي موديل، ده لازم يتحقق. يعني كل الجامعات دي فعلا احنا يمكن سرعنا، لكن لازم وهي بتتبني يبقى الشريك الصناعي موجود معنا. يعني الحمد لله في بعض الشركاء الصناعيين هم دلوقتي اللي بيبادروا سواء في الانفستنج في الموضوع او في البحث على الشراكه مع الجامعات القائمه دي، زي ما مثلا في النموذج بتاع بورسعيد ان هم بيحاولوا يعملوا سبونسرنج لبرنامج الطاقه النظيفه في الجرين هيدروجين الان. طبعا البرنامج ده هيضطر، او السبونسرنج ده هيبقى المحاور بتاعته مش بس ستادي بلان، مساهمات في او في كونسلتيشن في الناحيه الصناعيه، ده المستهدف الى لحد ما نوصل للريسيرش. طبعا ما اقدرش اقول دلوقتي انه كان هي لسه جامعات وليده، لكن نقدر نقول ده المستهدف بالنسبه للكيس اللي واضحه عندنا دي. هلا عندنا طبعا تشالنجز كتيره قوي اللي احنا كوزاره تعليم عالي، ايجاد الكوادر التي او تي، يعني مش احنا عشان نجيب educational staff قادر على التعامل مع الجامعات التكنولوجيه اللي انتشرت دي مره واحده بفكر تكنولوجي بمهارات عمليه بكومبتنس بيزد education، ان هو عنده نولج وسكيلز واتيتيود وكل الكلام ده دون ان تكون كوبي بيست من الجامعات الاكاديميه، دي مشكله. فدي لازم نعمل اكشن بلان على الجانب الاخر، ازاي نعمل تريننج للبرسونال اللي بيشتغلوا في الجامعات التكنولوجيه دي، او الانستراكتورز او الترينرز، سواء من مصر او من جهات اخرى. كل دي بيبقى يعني جوبس وتاسكس موجوده على الوزاره. طبعا التارجتس بالنسبه لنا ان احنا نوصل في 2035، ده كنا بنتكلم ان احنا يبقى الشير يعلو من 5% في الطاقه النظيفه، من الطاقه النظيفه الان الى اكثر من 40%. يعني نامل ان تكون الجامعات التكنولوجيه وسيله من وسائل الوصول الى هذا المستهدف. وزي ما قلت ان ده بيحتاج الى التعاون سواء مع اللينكينج التكنولوجيكال اديوكيشن مع الجهات الصناعيه، المابينج مع الشركاء الدوليين زي في الكيس بتاع شرق بورسعيد كده مع بوليتكنيكو ميلانو في ايطاليا، وازدياد الكوادر البشريه والفنيه اللي بحيث ان الدائره تكمل، الطالب يخرج يلاقي الشغل موجود عن طريق الشركاء الصناعيين او عن طريق الاحتياج في السوق المحلي. يمكن ده كان ملخص سريع كده اللي حاولت اعمله لشغل الوزاره في الفتره اللي جايه التحديات الموجوده بالنسبه لها في الفتره القادمه. شكرا.
بنشكر حضرتك بروفيسور أحمد الصباغ advisor to the Minister of Technical Education. بننتقل الآن لدكتور تامر نبيل Dean of the Egyptian Chinese College for Applied Technology. حضرتك في presentation تحب حضرتك؟
في presentation. شكرا دكتورة غادة، شكرا دكتور علي، شكرا دكتور مجاهد، شكرا إيديوتك، شكرا مؤسسة مصر الخير ان ادتني فرصة ان اكون في البانل ليست النهارده عشان اقول التجربة بتاعت الكلية المصرية الصينية للتكنولوجيا التطبيقية، احد الكليات التكنولوجية التطبيقية التابعة لجامعة قناة السويس. ودي فرصة ان انا بنقل تحية السيد رئيس الجامعة دكتور ناصر مندور للمنتدى وللملتقى. الموضوع بدأ من أول 2014. كانت مؤسسة مصر الخير بتبتعث الطلاب عشان يدرسوا في كلية بكين لتكنولوجيا المعلومات. مع توجه القيادة السياسية في الاتجاه ناحية إقليم قناة السويس والمنطقة الاقتصادية، جت الفكرة إن احنا ننشئ كلية على غرار الكلية بكين لتكنولوجيا المعلومات داخل إقليم قناة السويس. جه التعاون بين مؤسسة مصر الخير صاحبة الفكرة، جامعة قناة السويس من محورها وموقعها في إقليم قناة السويس، وكلية بكين لتكنولوجيا المعلومات، إن بدأوا يعملوا البروتوكولات لإنشاء كلية مماثلة داخل كلية اسمها الكلية المصرية الصينية للتكنولوجيا التطبيقية بجامعة قناة السويس. بدأ من بعد 2014 نحمل المحتوى العلمي للمقررات، نصيغ اللوائح، ناخد الموافقات، نجدد المباني التعليمية والمباني الإدارية. لحد يوم الإنشاء والافتتاح كان في 2018. كان حضر أعتقد دكتور مجاهد، كان حضر وكان سافر كذا مرة الصين عشان لإبرام العقود والاتفاقيات. كان مع الوزير محمد أيمن عاشور، كان موجود في الافتتاح، جميع القيادات كانت موجودة في الافتتاح. كان بالنسبة لنا حلم، هل هينجح أو مش هينجح احنا مش عارفين. الفكرة اللي موجودة في الذهن عن التعليم التكنولوجي هل هنقدر نغيرها أو لا، كان في تحدي كبير. ابتعثنا مجموعة من أعضاء هيئة التدريس علشان ياخدوا التريننج في الصين. بدأنا من أول 2018. بكلم حضراتكم دلوقتي وإحنا خرجنا أول دفعة السنة اللي فاتت من الكلية المصرية للتكنولوجيا التطبيقية. كنت خايف من استقبال سوق العمل اللي خريجين الكلية، كلية جديدة محدش يعرفها. ببلغ حضراتكم دلوقتي ان خريجين الدفعة الأولى كان عددهم 76 طالب وطالبة، 6 اتعينوا معيدين في الكلية، و70 طالب تم تعيينهم في المصانع الصينية والمؤسسات العالمية والمصرية داخل جمهورية مصر العربية على آخر وضع حتى الآن. الدراسة في الكلية 4 سنوات. في 3 تخصصات في الكلية، هي تكنولوجيا الميكاترونيك وتكنولوجيا الاتصالات، تكنولوجيا الإلكترونيات. الطالب بيجي من التنسيق من الثانوية العامة بمجاميع دلوقتي قرابت الطلبة اللي بتقبل في الكلية، مجاميع القبول قرابت من كليات القمة، إذا ما كانش كمان معظم الطلبة اللي جوه جايبين أعلى من مجاميع كليات القمة. الطالب لازم يجتاز امتحان القبول والقدرات والمقابلة الشخصية علشان يدخل الكلية. التدريس في الكلية باللغة الإنجليزية، زائد إن الطالب بياخد 9 ساعات تعلم لغة صينية خلال ال5 فصول دراسية الأولى، بحيث الطالب وهو بيتخرج بيحصل على مستوى في اللغة الصينية HSK4، يعني يقدر يتكلم صيني عادي خالص باللغة الصينية. علشان كده بيحصل تصارع بين المصانع الصيني اللي فاتحة في المنطقة الصناعية في تيدا على خريجي الكلية المصرية الصينية للتكنولوجيا التطبيقية. بيحصل تدريب خلال الصيف في جميع المصانع والمؤسسات الصناعية، وبيحصل ان بنسفر الطلبة المتفوقين الى الصين لكلية بكين لتكنولوجيا المعلومات عشان ياخد التدريب في الصيف. الطالب الخريج بيحصل على شهادتين، شهادة البكالوريوس التكنولوجي من المجلس الأعلى للجامعات من جامعة قناة السويس، وشهادة للحصول على دبلومة مهنية ب3 سنوات من كلية بكين لتكنولوجيا المعلومات. أنا كنت عايز أوري حضراتكم بعض الصور سريعا في البرزنتيشن. ده منظر أحد المباني، ده مبنى ميكاترونيك، وده شعار الكلية المصرية الصينية للتكنولوجيا التطبيقية. طبعا الشكر كل الشكر لجمعية الشيخ عبد الله النوري ومؤسسة مصر الخير للدعم المالي، المشاركة القوية جدا، ومؤسسة مصر الخير بتدينا دعم يوميا علشان نقدر نجدد المباني والمشاركة في العملية التعليمية. طبعا ده المكان بتاع الكلية في الإسماعيلية في جامعة قناة السويس، مجاور للمنطقة الاقتصادية لهيئة قناة السويس، ومعظم مشاريع التخرج بيحصل تنسيق بيننا وبين هيئة قناة السويس عشان نشوف احتياجاتهم وتبقى مشاريع التخرج، لأن الطالب في سنة رابعة خلال الترم الثاني لازم يعمل مشروعين للتخرج قبل تخرجه. دي التخصصات العلمية اللي موجودة. ده شكل الطلبة، أعداد الطلبة قليلة في الكلية، ما بيزيدش عن 100 طالب في كل سنة دراسية، بمعدل 30-35 طالب في كل تخصص من ال3 تخصصات، بحيث يقدر نحقق الاستفادة العلمية. ده شكل مبنى تاني في الكلية ومبنى الميكاترونيك. ده شكل مبنى الهانجر والورش التعليمية. ده شكل المبنى بتاع تكنولوجيا الإلكترونيات. ده شكل الفصول الدراسية من الداخل اللي بتلقى فيها المحاضرات والسكاشن. دي أحد المخرجات التعليم في نهاية كل مقرر. طبعا المقررات العلمية 60% عملي و40% نظري، فالطلبة في نهاية كل مقرر دراسي بيبقى ليه مشاريع تخرج في نهاية كل مقرر. ده مختلف تماما عن مشروع التخرج اللي في السنة النهائية. فدي صورة في مقرر من المقررات في الامبيدد سيستم، ازاي الولاد بيصنعوه from A to Z. دي الورش التعليمية اللي بياخدوها على الماشين وعلى المحركات. دي الزيارة بتاع طلبة الكلية للصين، لكلية بكين لتكنولوجيا المعلومات. دي أحد الزيارات المهمة جدا اللي الطلبة بتستناها من السنة للسنة للمتفوقين. دي زيارة سيد محافظ الإسماعيلية وسيد رئيس الجامعة لمشاريع التخرج والمشاريع الأسبوعية وفي نهاية كل ترم اللي بتحصل في الكلية. دي صورة من حفلة التخرج للدفعة الأولى اللي اتخرجت السنة اللي فاتت. احنا حتى الآن ما خرجناش غير دفعة واحدة، ودي صورة حفلة التخرج، وكان فيها كل الشركاء، مؤسسة مصر الخير، الجانب الصيني، الجانب الكويتي، كل الشركاء كانت موجودة في اليوم دوت. ودي زيارة السفارة الصينية، بيزورونا كل شوية سواء المستشار التعليمي الملحق الثقافي عشان يطمنوا. نسيت أقول لحضراتكم إن بعد نهاية كل فصل دراسي، بعد نهاية كل ترم، بيحصل تفتيش علينا من الجانب الصيني للتأكيد من جودة العملية التعليمية وإن هي ماشية بالظبط زي ما احنا متفقين في البروتوكولات، مفيش حيود، وبيعدلوا لنا بعض الأخطاء وبنستفاد منهم وبنفيدهم. حتى مشاريع التخرج بتاعتنا بتبقى مقترحات طبعا وفقا لاحتياجات السوق المصري ووفقا لاحتياجاتنا، فهم بيبدأوا يصوروا المشاريع بتاعتنا وبيسألونا بتتعمل ازاي. ففي تبادل مشترك ومنفعة مشتركة. ودي وسائل الاتصال بالكلية. ومتشكر جدا ان سمحتوا لي اعرض تجربة الكلية المصرية الصينية للتكنولوجيا التطبيقية. شكرا يا فندم.
شكرا جزيلا. شكرا دكتور تامر على العرض الشيق. ودلوقتي هننتقل لمستر ريكاردو أبريدو from the European Training Foundation. Is he with us on Zoom? على Zoom مفروض.
Hello. Hello. Can you hear me?
Good morning, Mr. Ricardo.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me.
Actually, we would like you to share with us the main results of the study conducted by the European Training Foundation on the energy sector.
Yes, I will share my screen so that I can show you a few slides. Okay, can you see now?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, sorry. I would like, as you have anticipated, I would like to present you the preliminary results of a study that the European Training Foundation has promoted on the future of skill needs in the energy sector in Egypt, with a particular focus on the green transition and the correlated skill needs. What is ETF? The European ETF stands for the European Training Foundation, is an European Union agency that supports the countries that are neighboring the European Union in harnessing the potential of the human capital. In the European Training Foundation has developed a novel methodology to forecast the needs for skills and occupation in the labor market that combines traditional methods such as focus groups or interviews with big data analysis on various sources of data. Based on this new methodology, ETF has launched various case studies, including the one that we are discussing today, to understand how the drivers of change, and in particular the technological innovation, affects the need for jobs and skills, and if and how the labor system, which means both the companies and the education system, is ready to meet those needs. The study in Egypt is still ongoing, so please take all the results that I'm showing you today as preliminary ones. So the first information that we gathered with big data analysis was about what are the drivers of change that are influencing the energy sector. So we started by collecting a large amount of documents, processed them with software, and identified thematic classes that had a very rapid growth in recent times. So it is the process that you can see on the left. We identified 4 main clusters of drivers of change. Of course, for example, which energy sources are available in a country to be exploited shape the needs for labor, but also national policy choices. For example, the will to expand the export, which of course is very important for the economy, but also means potentiating the infrastructure with all the implication in terms of correlated jobs and skills that will be needed in the future. One big driver is definitely the ongoing green transition, which is the main focus of today's session, and which of course will require a new set of skills and maybe a new mindset overall, not just competencies and skills and knowledge, but an entire new mindset. And of course, there's as a very powerful driver, there's a technological innovation, which on one side it enables the green transition or the others improvement, for example, in infrastructure and so on, but also requires new competencies and create new professional figures on its own. Think, for example, the digitalization and so on. We then focused more on the technological innovation driver proper. We studied the innovation activity across different technologies. We weighted it with the relevance of each technology for the specific situation of Egypt. And then we correlated those technological advancements with the occupations that would be needed to adopt or use those technologies. This way, we obtained a sort of a ranking of relative demand for different occupations that you can see for one example here on the left. So this way we obtained from the chart, for example, we can see that in the future, solar power plant operators will be in high demand, and that of course correlated with the green transition. But for example, also power distribution engineers for infrastructure expansion, the second driver that we discussed, or even medium to low skills people like pipe welder that's still relevant for distribution through pipelines, and so on and so on. In general, we can say that we identify 3 main categories of occupation that are heavily impacted by the ongoing technological improvements, advancements, and innovation. Of course, you can expect highly skilled profiles like engineers to be impacted. And this one important result is that not only in new areas such as renewables, but still traditional roles will also be needed with maybe new skills, like, for example, mechanical engineers and so on in supporting roles. And it's not just highly skilled professions which will be impacted by technological advancements, but also medium and low skilled technicians and operators, which will be needed in quite large numbers to use the technologies, to maintain them, to repair them, and so on. And another important finding is that also business and sales profiles will be impacted by technological advancements. Both in their needs, for example, for digital skills in digital sales and so on, but also because they need to manage or sell products that will have the new technologies inside. So they have to have at least an understanding on how those technologies work and what they do. Third, we compared which skills and competencies are needed by each occupations, and we found some interesting insight that has implications for how the education and training system should form these new profession or existing professions with new sets of skills. Of course, the baseline is that to support the green transition, you need a lot of new competencies. So it's a skill-intensive process, and of course, the education and training of the workers for the green transition would be a key factor. Another important takeover from the correlation analysis we did is that, of course, you still need some very vertical specialists like wind or in renewable energies, for example, but there are also many profiles which will be needed that have a more transversal competencies. Like, for example, in supporting roles, you need a wind energy engineer for the wind turbines, but you need the civil engineers to help in constructing, the tower, for example. So there are more traditional, but with a wider set of skills that will be still needed. In general, we can say there is a rise in what they are called T-shaped worker profiles, where there are very specific competence in one field, but still a wider knowledge across other sectors that will be needed for interacting with other professionals or covering more general roles. And also another general trend is that in general, all type of workers, high level, medium, low level, we need a wider set of skills than before, including those technologies that are basically everywhere, like digital technologies. So training programs will have to take into account, though, even more, of course, some specific and vertical knowledge for specific occupations, but also these transversal topics, for example, digitalization. These competencies, and these will also help the reskilling or the reconversion of workers from one subsector to another, thanks to this transversal link. For example, since of the green transition, you will have to shift more and more people operating in the fossil fuel to biogas or other sorts of renewable energy, hydrogen, as was mentioned before in another talk. This was the big data part. We also conducted some field work by interviewing the people, companies, and trying to understand what are the limitations and the action that can be put in place to overcome those limitations. And almost all of the companies interviewed told us that they need highly skilled jobs more and more, especially, for example, for digital competence and so on. And of course, for the green transition, you need a lot of new competencies, but which is not just new energy sources, but also efficiency in infrastructure and so on. But the impression, at least the perception of companies, that there were not enough programs in the education system. And there was actually, again, in the perception of companies, not enough collaboration between the education system and the companies to understand what were the labor needs of the companies. These resulted in a shortage of workers in different occupation, special occupation, and need from the company side to provide additional training to the workforce to fill this gap. So the solution that were implemented so far by companies to fill the gaps, you can see this is, for example, going to private employment services, which also meant getting workers from abroad, not within the country, or of course outsourcing jobs or subcontracting jobs to other companies, sometimes foreign companies. Of course, there's also training of your recruits. This was done by internal personnel of the company, and only sometimes using external providers of training, and increase in the range of recruitment methods, for example, online recruitment and so on, and only in a few cases, which of course very good, but not everywhere, partnering with the education providers to fill the training gaps, both of the existing workers and of students that will become the workers of the future. From the interviews, again, these are preliminary findings, and so more may come. The suggestions that came from the companies and from other stakeholders was to those structural action that can be undertaken to address the skill gaps. The first one is to increase, well, they're all about better collaboration, let's say. So the first one is collaborating with the research centers abroad to support the innovation within the country and the uptaking of new technologies and therefore new competencies. The second type of collaboration is with the sectorial associations that are already present in the countries to increase the training opportunities for companies, for students, provided by those sectorial associations, which are of course very active, but they need to be more involved in the process. And also, of course, the further line of collaboration is about making use of the public training programs that are already present. But fourth direction of collaboration, there is the need for making these training programs more closer, sorry, to the company's needs. So the collaboration should also go in the direction of talking between stakeholders and understanding what are the things that are really needed in the labor market from the side of companies, so that the training and education providers can adapt their training path and learning path accordingly. So that's it. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present that. And if you're interested in knowing more about this project, the ETF will release the full report about the results in a short time, and I guess the organizer will have the link to share with everyone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ricardo, for sharing with us the main results of the study conducted by the European Training Foundation. Mr. Ova, can you quickly, in 2 minutes, tell us how would you address the topic of digitalization within the framework of the Center of Competence? Quickly. Yeah. No.
Is it now audible? Yes, okay, thank you very much. So before I give you 2 sentences about digitalization, I have to do apology because I forgot to mention 2 important partners in our project. One is the Masal Khair Foundation, and one is the General Authority on Educational Buildings. These 2 main partners are also part of this project. I unfortunately forgot to mention them previously. So digitalization, as I said before, I think we have to include digitalization into the educational process. For us, there are at least 3 steps. Number 1 is digitization of material, of the content, which is more or less not that difficult to digitalize or to digitize the content in instructional videos or even in other forms. Number 2 is digitalization, which refers to the teaching and learning processes, number 1. Number 2 refers to the administration processes. So we should have an education management system for the whole entity with having all the data. And number 3 is the integration of artificial intelligence, which will be one part of education in the future.
Thank you very much. I want to move to Dr. Rasha. If you can summarize the answer of, that what are the roles of the different stakeholders in preparing the TVET labor market for the green transformation briefly, please. Thank you very much. Okay,
can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Now we can.
Sorry. Now, just before answering this question, I want just to highlight a very important piece of information that according to also ILO statistics, less than 40% of the nationally determined commitments, the NDCs of countries include plans for skills training.
Okay.
Now, this is very alarming because the implementation of these NDCs would rely heavily on qualified labor force. So if countries do not have strategies to upskill the labor force, it means that they will not be able to actually implement those NDCs. Now, for the different stakeholders, there is a role for each stakeholder, the government, the private sector, civil society, and they should all collaborate actually to design and implement a strategy for human resource development. This strategy should include measures for vocational training and reskilling, and also introducing new specializations that are required for the green transformation. Okay. An important also point to put in mind is that the green skills development should be integrated into the policy, the general policy for skills development. It should not be seen as an additional set of skills. So, for instance, in addition to giving the students and the trainees, increasing the awareness about the environment, about the sustainable development, they should also be trained on core skills, such as innovation skills, problem-solving skills, decision-making skills, and communication skills. And of course, we have to train the teachers on how to, on those skills and how to transfer them to the students. On the employer side and the private sector, they should also have a plan for upskilling the skills of their workforce and working with the government on the general strategy for human resources. And here it is important to highlight the role of the sector skills councils that were discussed yesterday, because these sector skills councils will be they will be responsible for identifying and forecasting the new skills and occupational standards for the green transformation. Now, it's very important that all stakeholders, as I said, work together, the government, the employers, and the private sector. And the main objective should be to capitalize on the resources and expertise of all the stakeholders so that they can jointly identify and analyze the skill needs and implement the agreed upon strategy. Just one last point about what USAID is doing in this area. Now, USAID has been working in the TVET sector for more than 10 years. And throughout those 10 years, we have lessons learned on what reforms should be implemented. And we gathered all of these reforms in what we call now the International Applied Technology Schools, which are schools that operate according to international standards. We are establishing 10 of them. We're introducing totally new specializations like artificial intelligence, marketing for financial services, modern trade, e-commerce, facility management. And these schools will have international accreditation. It's competency-based school, not just curriculum. And there will be green schools, meaning that they have sustainable buildings that rely on solar energy generation, the use of CO2 filters, conservation of water and electricity through sensors. And in addition to that, the students will be given extracurricular activities to improve their awareness about the environment and the green transformation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rasha. One last question for Ms. Cora. Will every job become green in the future? Briefly, please. Go ahead.
Hello, okay, it's
Yes.
working. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the question. In short, I would say yes.
Okay.
We have a transition, as we said, the world of work has to support the adaptation to effects of climate change. So we have many jobs which are clearly green already and can also call it green because they are clearly related to energy efficiency or renewable energy or circular economy. We had a few examples. And these are green jobs, but we have also greening of jobs happening and something which Ricardo mentioned where a wider set of skills is needed, such, for example, a car mechanic in the future has to also be able to maintain and repair electric vehicles. So this is something where a profile is changing and skills and competences need to be trained. But let me make it short. If we look at sustainability effect as something which can be used as a yardstick, then there are many, many green jobs, and in fact, every sector is affected. And just one example, IT communication. This is something which usually is never, or is often we don't understand that even it makes a difference if we are streaming a video or if you are downloading a video, because one is consuming much more energy. So for example, computizing products, data transfer, all this can be designed to save time and energy. And that's a good example for a job which becomes green. Or another example, if you look at procurement, this was also mentioned, sustainable procurement, usually done by persons working in offices, clerks sometimes. This is something is also a green job in the future because the knowledge and understanding and awareness about environmental aspects integrated in such kind of profiles will in the future make every job green.
Thank you very much. Do we have time for questions from the audience? هل عندنا وقت لأسئلة من الجمهور؟ Okay, please allow me to thank Ms. Cora Goodman, Head of Employment Promotion Project at GIZ. Thank you very much, Ms. Merve Jameson, Omnia Education Partnership from Finland. Thank you very much, Dr. Rasha Abdel Hakim, Senior Economic Counselor, Office of Economic Growth, USAID. Thank you very much, Mr. Uwe Wickenberg, International TVET expert. Thank you very much, Professor Ahmed El-Sabbagh, Advisor to the Minister for Technical and Technological Education. Thank you very much, Dr. Tamer Nabil, Dean of the Egyptian Chinese College for Applied Technology. Thank you very much, Mr. Ricardo Apredo from the European Training Foundation. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening.
Thank you very much.